This is part 2 of our launching a new website checklist to make sure that all the bases are covered if you're launching a new site or relaunching a site that's been up before. You'll want to go back and listen to part 1 of this because we covered 5 key things that are foundational to success. But rather than review those, we'll just pick up in part number 6 today, and I'll post the link to the previous video below so you can go grab it if you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. So after you've done the first 5 steps, the next thing you want to do is, it can kind of be a pain, but it needs to be done. You need to manually check the layout and proof every page. And the reason is you can get some layout issues between different browsers and then responsive issues between like a mobile platform, an iPhone, an Android phone. And so you're going to want to check your site in the major browsers, which for us would be Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, and Firefox, the newest versions of those. If you want to go back and check previous versions, you can, but we tend to support the most current version when we do a site launch. And then you want to take the time to get an Apple tablet, an iPad, and look at the site on it, vertical and horizontal, to make sure it resolves correctly and responsive. Same thing on Android. Vertical and horizontal aspects, iPhone, Android phone. That's going to take a while to do, but it's totally worth it. Occasionally you'll have an image which is large, which will like stick over into another column or something like that, and you want to make sure that that gets fixed. Also, make sure you've deleted any demo content, like the Hello World post that tends to be native to any theme you installed, or if your developer installed it or did any kind of test pages or test themes, you want to make sure those are deleted. Number 7, you want to go through and manually check your call to action buttons. Why? This is the lifeblood of most sites. This is where you're going to get the person to go from a site viewer to a client, customer, or patient. And so literally, you want to go to your site, like we have one of our pages pulled up here. This is one of our service pages. You want to click this button and make sure it takes you to your landing page. It's a call to action for whatever it is you offer. And you want to do that on every page. So that's a good thing to do in tandem with number 6 as you go through those pages, just to make sure that the call to action button works on every single page. The next thing is make sure you test your forms, and if you have any CRM hooked up, you want to make sure that that the form information is getting there. And so anytime we launch a site, even though we tested it on the development site, one of the first things we do, it's the 8th thing we do actually, is go through and send a sample contact form and then call the site owner and say, hey, did you just get this in your inbox? Also, what we do is we make sure we have a database installed. Also, you can see on our site that we were the very first person that submitted anything. That was our test, and the database is capturing it. If you're running a CRM like Salesforce or something else that you need to integrate to, you want to make sure it's getting captured there. In addition, if you're using an email provider, for example, MailChimp, and you're collecting email addresses on your site in a field, you want to make sure that that's getting collected in your email provider's database. So just take some time and run some tests to do that. Number 9, test social media icons. We've seen over and over again that somebody's social media icons aren't live. For example, when we launched Jackalope's site, you want to make sure these icons, sometimes when the developer develops them, they'll turn back on themselves and they'll just take you to the home page. So watch, I'll just open these in a new tab each. And you can see it routed to Facebook. It routed to their Twitter. It routed to their Instagram. And this client uses Yelp a lot for reviews. So all those social media icons work. You just want to make sure those are working so you get them leveraged. The other thing you want to make sure is your Favicon is in place. And the Favicon, if you look at this toolbar up here, you can see these little colored images next to the name of the site. That's your favicon. And so you would say, well, how do I do that? Well, in WordPress, it's pretty simple. Once you're logged into your WordPress, you won't see a favicon like on this page, this contact page I showed you earlier. But if you need to create your favicon, what you're generally going to do is go to, in your dashboard, go to Appearance, Customize. You're going to have something called Site Identity. And then right here, it says Site Icon. This can be used as your favicon too, and you'll just need to create an image that is 512 by 512, right? So I've already loaded that into the media library. Click it. We made sure this background was transparent around the pink. Select. And then once you select that, that will become, you'll see it populate up here as your favicon. And it just makes it easier for people to, when they glance at the top, to see where your page is. So you want to have that in place. The next thing you want to do is install an SEO plugin. The one that everybody tends to use is Yoast. It's okay. It's very bloated, and it doesn't have all the horsepower that a proprietary plugin uses. We use something built by Ultimate SEO Plus. We'll do a whole nother video series on it. It's super deep, way more powerful than Yoast, way easier to do the things you need to do on your site than Yoast, and we'd be happy to talk with you about that. And in fact, using that plugin, you can do number 12, which is add schema to your page headers. We have a whole article on schema markup and a video on it. But in general, schema is a little snippet of code that tells Google exactly what your page is about. And so the way you check your schema to see if you've done it correctly and inserted this code correctly, you can go to this Google checker at search.google.com/structured-data/testing tool, or you can just Google schema tester Google. And let's look at Texas Breast Center, for example. You can run the test. It shows you, here's the code, and it shows you what it's seeing. You'll notice on this one there's one warning. So you can click this to expand it to see what that warning is. Everything is right for this breast cancer surgeon. It wants to know a price range. There's not a price range for that, so it's fine to not complete a field. So you can just leave that off. But you want to check, make sure there's no error. And the importance of having schema is you can tell Google all kinds of things about your page. For example, this is a breast cancer surgeon. You can show your phone number to them, your URL, your hours, just tons of good data, your street address, which is huge for ranking. And there's different kind of schema for different kind of businesses. But again, that's its own blog post and its own video. And then the final thing we're going to do in part 2 of this video is to check your RSS feed. That is a syndication feed that allows people to pick up your content and syndicate it. It's used in SEO quite often, and it allows someone basically to subscribe to your blog feed, and has some other powerful things it can do. So you want to make sure it's in place. The best way to do that is go to your URL. We'll just use Muna now. And if you're in WordPress, you type in your URL /feed. It's going to look a little bit gibberish, but if you have a blog article published, which you should, because that's what hits your RSS feed, not your pages, what you're going to want to do is scroll down until you see the newest title for one of your most recent blogs. So, for example, in our blog, we did an article about Fort Worth. So I can see right here that it picked that up, and that blog is in the RSS feed. So if you only have one blog, you want to make sure to kind of scroll through and look for this code right here that says title, and make sure you see that blog in your RSS feed. Otherwise, you have a problem with your RSS feed. So just make sure that is in place. If you'll complete the steps in part 1 and 2 of this video, you'll be well on your way to a successful site launch. Stay tuned for part 3, where we cover steps 14 through 21. This is Jordan Fowler with Moon and Owl Marketing. Remember, if you need any web help from design to development to deployment, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.